I didn't mean to stare, not at her, not that long. But something about the way she stood by the window that evening, one hand resting against the glass, made everything else in the room fall away. The soft hum of the ceiling fan, the distant laughter from the backyard, it all blurred into background noise. Only she remained sharp in my focus. My friend's mom. Her name was Elena, though everyone called her Mrs. Hale. Mid-40s, graceful without trying, like time had slowed down around her. She had that kind of stillness you notice too late, the kind that pulls you in before you realize you've already crossed a line. When she turned toward me, her smile was polite, maybe even distant. "You can leave the toolbox by the counter, Liam." Her voice was calm, measured, but it did something to me. Maybe it was the faint rasp in her tone, or the way my name sounded softer in her mouth. I nodded, trying to act casual, but my palms were already damp from pretending not to notice her. "I didn't know you fixed things," she said. "Just small stuff," I replied. "Your son told me the cabinet hinge was loose, so," she smiled again, just barely. "You're helpful." "That's rare." I didn't know how to answer that. I only shrugged, but she kept looking at me long enough for it to feel like a conversation in itself. There was nothing flirtatious in her eyes, not exactly. More curious. A look that seemed to ask, "What are you doing here, really?" The kitchen light was soft, golden. She moved past me to reach for a cup from the shelf, her arm brushing lightly against mine. It wasn't deliberate, but I felt it all the same, a small, electric accident neither of us acknowledged. She poured coffee for herself, then hesitated, holding up the pot. "Do you want some?" "Sure." She handed me a mug, and for a second, our fingers touched. A simple thing, a second, no more, but something in her exhale changed. She didn't pull away right away. And I, God help me, didn't either. The silence between us stretched. Outside, the sky was bruised with evening colors. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked. "You look like you're thinking too much," she said quietly. "I could say the same to you." That made her smile, not the polite kind this time, but something faintly real. "You shouldn't say things like that," she murmured. "Not to me. I didn't mean anything by it." "I know." She looked down at her coffee. "That's the problem." Something about the way she said it, not angry, just honest, made me want to stay there, to say something that could make sense of the strange, fragile air between us. But words felt clumsy. So I just watched her, the curve of her wrist as she set her mug down, the way her shoulders rose and fell in slow, careful breaths. "I should get going," I said finally, though I didn't move. She turned to face me again, her expression unreadable. "You're a good man, Liam. Don't stay too long in houses like this. People start to misunderstand things." "Do you?" I asked before I could stop myself. Her lips parted, but no sound came. The moment held tight, trembling, until the sound of a door opening down the hallway broke it. Her son's voice echoed faintly. "Mom?" Elena stepped back, her voice steady again, her face composed. "In here." But before she turned fully toward him, she looked at me one last time, a look that said everything we hadn't said out loud. And I knew, from that moment, that this wasn't over. The next time I saw her, it wasn't planned. I'd come by to drop off a charger my friend left at my apartment. But he wasn't home, just her, standing barefoot in the hallway, hair tied back, wearing a soft gray sweater that looked too big on her. "Oh," she said, caught off guard but smiling. "You again." "Sorry, I didn't mean to, it's fine." She leaned against the doorframe, crossing her arms. "He's out. You can leave it inside if you want." I hesitated in the doorway. Her house smelled like coffee and rain-soaked wood, something comforting and lonely at the same time. I set the charger on the counter and turned to leave, but she spoke again. "Stay a minute. I was just making tea." It sounded casual, but her tone had that same undertone as before, the one that left no clear place for me to stand. I followed her to the kitchen, telling myself it was polite. The window was fogged from the kettle's steam. She moved with quiet efficiency, and I couldn't help noticing the small things, the way her sleeves slipped over her hands, the faint line of tension at her neck. You work a lot, she asked. Yeah. Nights mostly. Trying to save for grad school. She nodded, stirring sugar into her cup. That's good. You have time. You shouldn't rush it. You sound like someone who did. Her stirring stopped. Maybe, she said softly. When you get older, you realize how much you gave away without thinking. How much of yourself you just hand over. I wanted to ask to who, but she was already changing the subject. Your parents must be proud. I laughed under my breath. They divorced when I was 16. I don't think they notice much now. Something in her eyes shifted recognition. Divorce is strange. You keep living with ghosts of choices you made. There was a long silence after that. Only the quiet tick of the kitchen clock and the faint hiss of the kettle cooling. She turned toward me, her face half lit by the late afternoon light. You remind me of someone, she said. Someone I used to know. He listened too much, too carefully. I smiled faintly. That sounds dangerous. It was, she whispered. She reached past me to set her cup down, her shoulder brushing mine again, soft, unintentional, but deliberate in its avoidance. Her hand lingered on the counter near mine. I could feel the heat from her skin even without touching. She exhaled slowly, eyes lowered. You shouldn't look at me that way. I wasn't, you were, she said, her voice barely above a breath. And I let you. Neither of us moved. The space between us felt alive, charged, fragile. Outside, thunder rolled far away, the kind that makes everything inside feel smaller, more intimate. Her fingers brushed mine, just once a whisper of contact that said more than words ever could. And though she pulled her hand back a second later, the warmth stayed. That was the moment I knew, whatever this was, neither of us could pretend it wasn't real anymore. It started with rain, the kind that came sudden and heavy, turning the sky into gray water. I'd stopped by to return a borrowed book, but by the time I reached her porch, thunder had already rolled in. She opened the door halfway, strands of hair sticking to her forehead. You'll get soaked, she said. Come in before you drown out there. Her voice carried a softness that felt unguarded. I stepped inside, shoes squeaking faintly on the floor. She took one look at me, wet hair, dripping sleeves, and sighed. Wait here. She came back with a towel, pressing it into my hands. When I didn't immediately take it, she laughed quietly and started drying my hair herself. Her fingers moved slowly, carefully, too careful. I could feel her breath near my temple, warm against the cool air. You're freezing, she murmured. So are you. We both froze at that. Her hands stilled, and she pulled them back, but not far enough. The silence that followed was different this time, not awkward, but heavy, the kind that seemed to hum in the space between heartbeats. Liam, she said, barely above a whisper. Yeah? This is, before she could finish, her phone buzzed on the counter. We both turned toward it. A name flashed on the screen, her son's. Her breath caught. She moved to answer, but her hand hesitated over the phone. He's on his way home, she said quietly. The words landed like cold air between us. She turned off the buzzing screen and leaned against the counter, facing away. You should probably go. I didn't move. Do you want me to? Her shoulders tensed. Don't ask questions like that. Why not? Because you already know the answer. Her voice cracked slightly on the last word, and something inside me broke with it. I stepped closer, slow, unsure, until I was standing right behind her. I could see her reflection in the kitchen window, the way her eyes stayed fixed on nothing, her breath trembling just enough to give her away. When I spoke, it came out low. I don't want this to stop. Her head turned just a little enough for our eyes to meet in the glass. You don't know what you're saying. I do. No, you don't. She turned around, her voice sharp now, but her hand found my wrist, holding it just enough to contradict every word she said. You're too young to understand what it means to ruin something that still feels good. I'm not trying to ruin anything. Her grip tightened for a heartbeat, then softened. Her eyes searched mine, not angry, just lost. The kind of look you give someone when you're begging them to stop but hoping they won't. And then the sound of a car door slammed outside. She flinched, stepping back so fast it startled both of us. "He's here." I nodded, heart pounding, the space between us still alive with something neither of us could name. She reached out once more, as if to say something, but stopped herself mid-motion. Her fingers hovered in the air, inches from my chest, trembling slightly. "Go," she whispered. I turned toward the door, but before I left, I looked back. She was still standing there, hand pressed against her lips, eyes closing slowly, like she was trying to breathe through a decision she'd already lost. And for the first time, I wasn't sure which one of us she was trying to protect. I didn't plan to see her again so soon, but plans never seemed to matter with her. 2 days after the rain, she called, her voice quieter than usual. "Could you help me move a few boxes from the attic? I'd ask your friend, but he's out for the weekend." I should have said no. Instead, I was standing at her doorway before I had time to think about it. The house felt different without her son around, quieter, too still. Dust hung in the late afternoon light as I climbed down from the attic, one box in my arms. She was waiting at the bottom of the ladder, hair loose this time, eyes following every step. "Where should I put it?" I asked, trying not to sound nervous. She gestured toward the living room. "There's space by the couch." I set it down, exhaling. When I turned back, she was closer than I expected, close enough that I could smell her perfume, faint and familiar, something warm like amber and rain. "Thank you," she said softly. Her tone wasn't casual. It had weight to it, gratitude for something she couldn't name. I nodded, but neither of us moved. The distance between us was a fraction of what it used to be. "Why do you keep helping me?" she asked suddenly. "Because you ask," I said. Her eyes flickered. "You shouldn't." "Then stop asking." It came out sharper than I meant it to, but she didn't flinch. She just stood there, the corner of her mouth twitching like she almost wanted to smile but couldn't. "You don't understand," she said. "This, whatever this is, it can't happen." "Then why do you keep letting it?" She took a step closer, almost in defiance. "You think this is easy for me?" "I don't think it's easy for either of us." Her breathing quickened, her hands curling slightly at her sides. "You're making it harder to pretend I don't see what's right in front of me." "Then don't pretend." The silence that followed was unbearable. She looked up at me, eyes shining with something between anger and ache. My heart was pounding so loud I was sure she could hear it. "Liam," she whispered. My name in her voice didn't sound like a warning anymore, it sounded like surrender. I reached out, almost without thinking, brushing a loose strand of hair from her face. She didn't move away. My fingers grazed her cheek, and she closed her eyes for a heartbeat too long. "Tell me to stop," I said quietly. Her lips parted. "I can't." That was all it took. She leaned in, or maybe I did, but before our mouths met, the sound of her phone ringing shattered the air. We froze. The spell broke, replaced by the rapid rhythm of two people caught between what they want and what they know they can't have. The phone kept ringing. She didn't answer. Her eyes lifted to mine again, breath unsteady, words trembling on the edge of everything. "This isn't over," she said finally. "It can't be." And before I could say anything, she turned away, leaving me standing there, caught in the gravity of something that had already gone too far to stop. It was supposed to fade. After that almost kiss, after the trembling silence that followed, we both went quiet, texts unanswered, doors unopened. A week passed. Then 2. But silence doesn't erase what it remembers. One evening, I was at the cafe near campus, laptop open, trying to force my mind anywhere else. That's when her son walked in. My friend. The one who unknowingly stood between everything I wanted and everything I shouldn't. He slid into the chair across from me, casual as always. "Hey man, haven't seen you around much. My mom thought you were avoiding us." My throat tightened. "Just busy." He grinned. "She mentioned you helped with the attic. Said you're a good kid." Funny thing, she found an old photo album up there. From before Dad left. I looked up, trying to sound normal. Yeah. She said it made her think about how fast people grow up. About you, actually. He laughed lightly, not noticing how I froze. She said you remind her of someone she used to know. He stood to order a drink, leaving me there with that single sentence burning through me. When I finally walked home later, I told myself I wouldn't stop by. But somehow, I ended up on her porch again. Maybe I just wanted the truth in her eyes, not filtered through her son's careless words. She opened the door before I even knocked. I thought you weren't coming back. I wasn't. Then why are you here? I didn't answer. She stepped aside, and I walked in. The air between us felt charged again, thick with everything we'd left unsaid. Your son mentioned the attic, I said. Something flickered in her expression, surprise, then something like fear. What about it? He said I reminded you of someone. Someone from before. She looked away, exhaling slowly. He shouldn't have said that. Then tell me it's not true. Her silence was its own confession. I took a step closer, voice low. Who was he? She hesitated, then, someone who left when he shouldn't have. Someone who looked at me the same way you do. The air shifted, electric, dangerous. I felt my pulse in my throat. Is that why you've been avoiding me? She met my eyes. Because I know how this story ends. I moved closer before I could stop myself. Maybe it doesn't have to. She shook her head. You're not him, Liam. You're worse. Because you make me want to believe it could be different. Her words landed like a confession and a warning all at once. She stepped past me, brushing my shoulder, a small, trembling motion that made my chest tighten. I turned, voice barely steady. Then tell me to leave. She stopped at the doorway, one hand gripping the frame. If I do, will you? Neither of us moved. And then, her phone buzzed again, the sound sharp in the quiet room. She looked at the screen, and her breath hitched. Who is it? I asked. Her voice was barely a whisper. Your friend. He's on his way home. Her eyes lifted to mine, wide, afraid, and wanting. And in that single look, I knew it, whatever came next, there was no going back. The night was too quiet, the kind of quiet that amplifies every sound you shouldn't be making. The steady rain outside tapped against the windows, soft and relentless, like it was keeping time with something neither of us wanted to name. She was pacing the living room when I walked in, arms crossed, face pale in the dim light. You shouldn't be here, she said. But her voice had lost its edge, it sounded more like a plea than a warning. I know, I said. But you didn't tell me to stay away. Her eyes flicked toward me, then down to the floor, to the space between us. You don't understand how much this could hurt. I think I do. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It pulsed. I took one step closer, then another. She didn't move back this time. You think this is just attraction, she whispered. But it's not. It's everything I've been trying not to feel for years. Her words hit like a confession and a collapse. I reached up, brushing a strand of hair from her face, slow, careful, deliberate. She closed her eyes for a second, her breath catching. Every time I see you, she continued, her voice breaking slightly, I feel alive. And then I hate myself for it. Don't, I said softly. Don't hate yourself for feeling something real. Her eyes opened, wet but steady. You're too young to call it real. Then what do you call it? She didn't answer. Instead, she stepped forward until our bodies were just inches apart, close enough that I could feel the warmth of her breath on my neck, smell the faint trace of coffee and rain on her skin. Liam, she whispered, my name trembling on her lips. If I do this, I can't undo it. My hand found hers, fingers barely touching. Then don't undo it. The moment hovered, delicate and breaking all at once. She looked up, eyes locked with mine, as if she was searching for a reason to stop and couldn't find one. When she finally spoke, her voice was almost too soft to hear. "I've spent half my life doing what's right. And now?" I asked. Her answer was barely a breath. "Now I just want to feel." She leaned in, not a kiss, not yet, just enough for her forehead to rest against mine. The world outside blurred into sound and heartbeat. Every second felt stretched, suspended, impossible. Then she pulled back, eyes glassy but clear. "This can't last," she said. "I know. But I needed you to know I meant it." For a moment, we just stood there, two people on the edge of something beautiful and wrong, breathing the same air, neither willing to move first. Then she let go of my hand, slowly, her fingers trailing like the last thread of something too fragile to hold. And in that small, breaking gesture, everything was said. We both knew what we'd chosen, and what we'd lose because of it. Morning light always makes the truth harder to hide. The night before had left the house filled with quiet, not guilt, not regret, just the kind of stillness that happens after two people finally stop pretending. I found her sitting on the back porch, wrapped in a blanket, eyes fixed on the soft gold of sunrise bleeding through the clouds. She didn't turn when she heard me step outside. "You should be asleep," she said, voice low. "I couldn't. I figured." She smiled faintly, the kind that didn't quite reach her eyes but tried anyway. I sat beside her. Neither of us spoke for a while. The air was cool, the world damp from last night's rain. Her mug sat half empty on the table, the steam long gone. Finally, she said, "Do you hate me for what happened?" I looked at her, really looked at her, the fine lines around her eyes, the softness of her hands clutching the blanket, the quiet strength that had always drawn me in. "No," I said. "I could never hate you." She exhaled, her shoulders relaxing for the first time in days. "You should. You're supposed to. I'm tired of doing what I'm supposed to." That made her laugh, quietly, almost painfully. She turned to me then, her eyes warmer than they'd been in weeks. "You don't make this easy." I wasn't trying to. Her hand moved, almost unconsciously, to mine. The touch was light, tentative. I didn't pull away. Instead, I let my fingers wrap around hers, not desperate, just steady. "This isn't a mistake," I said. "It is," she whispered. "But maybe, it's the kind I needed." We sat like that, side by side, the silence between us no longer sharp but soft. The fear that once lived in every glance had turned into something else, understanding, maybe. She leaned her head against my shoulder, her hair brushing my jaw. "You make me feel young again," she said. I smiled. "You make me feel seen." The words lingered in the air like something sacred. After a moment, she shifted, looking up at me. Her hand rose to my face, tracing a small line down my cheek, a gesture so gentle it hurt. Then she pressed her forehead against mine, her breath warm against my lips. "This," she murmured, "whatever it is. I don't want to explain it anymore." "Then don't." And she didn't. We stayed like that as the sun climbed higher, not speaking, not moving, just existing in the quiet truth of what we'd become. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't right by anyone else's rules. But it was real. And that was enough. When she finally stood, she didn't let go of my hand. "You'll come back?" she asked. "Always." She smiled, the real kind this time, and squeezed my fingers once before letting them go. As I watched her walk back inside, the light caught her hair, and for a moment, everything in me felt steady again. Maybe it wouldn't last forever. But for now, it was enough to know she'd stopped pretending, and so had I. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?